We'll hear argument today in Case 08205, Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. Mr. Olson.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the Court, participation in the political process is the First Amendment's most fundamental guarantee. Yet that freedom is being smothered by one of the most complicated, expensive, and incomprehensible regulatory regimes ever invented by the administrative state. In the case that you consider today, it is a felony for a small, nonprofit corporation to offer interested viewers a 90-minute political documentary about a candidate for the nation's highest office that General Electric, National Public Radio, or George Soros may freely broadcast. Its film may be shown in theaters, sold on DVDs, transmitted for downloading on the Internet, and its message may be distributed in the form of a book. But its producers face 5 years in prison if they offer it in the home through the vehicle of video on demand. Because
Mr. Olson, this is, I think you were right in conceding at the beginning, this is not like the speech involved in Wisconsin Right to Life. This is targeted to a specific candidate for a specific office to be shown on a channel that says Election 08, that tells the viewer over and over again what, just for example, it concludes with, these are things worth remembering before you go in potentially to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, if that isn't an appeal to voters, I can't imagine what is.
yes, Justice Ginsburg, I understand your point. There is much in there that if you saw it, you would form an opinion with respect to how you might want to vote. You might form all kinds of different opinions. But it was an analysis of the background, record, and history and qualifications of someone running for president. Of course I concede that. But what is the maker of a movie to take out in order to prevent that from happening? I understand from some of the questions that it was more even-handed. If it said, well, this candidate did this, but this candidate did this, or this candidate was born in the Panama Canal Zone and this candidate was born in Hawaii, and that affects whether or not they're natural-born citizens or not, and it was more even-handed, would that then not be a felony?
Well, do you think the Constitution required Congress to draw the line where it did, limiting this to broadcast, to cable, and so forth? What's your answer to Mr. Olson's point that there isn't any constitutional difference between the distribution of this movie on video demand and providing access on the Internet, providing DVDs either through a commercial service or maybe in a public library, providing the same thing in a book? Would the Constitution permit the restriction of all of those as well?
I think the Constitution would have permitted Congress to apply the electioneering communication restrictions to the extent that they're otherwise constitutional under Wisconsin Right to Life. Those could have been applied to additional media as well. And it's worth remembering that the pre-existing Federal Election Campaign Act restrictions on corporate electioneering, which have been limited by this Court's decisions to express advocacy.
That's pretty incredible. You think that if a book was published, a campaign biography that was the functional equivalent of express advocacy, that could be banned?
I'm not saying it could be banned. I'm saying that Congress could prohibit the use of corporate treasury funds and could require a corporation to publish it using its...
Well, most publishers are corporations. And a publisher that is a corporation could be prohibited from selling a book?
Well, of course, the statute contains its own media exemption for media.
But I'm not asking what the statute says. The government's position is that the First Amendment allows the banning of a book if it's published by a corporation.
Because the First Amendment refers both to freedom of speech and of the press, there would be a potential argument that media corporations, the institutional press, would have a greater First Amendment right. That
it were an advocacy organization that had a book, your position is that under the Constitution, the advertising for this book or the sale for the book itself could be prohibited within the 30-day period.
If the book contained the functional equivalent of express advocacy, that is, if it was subject to no reasonable interpretation.
And I suppose it could even, is it the Kindle where you can read a book? I take it that's from a satellite, so the existing statute would probably prohibit that under your view.
Well, the statute applies to cable, satellite, and broadcast communications. And the court in McConnell has addressed this question.
So just to make it clear, it's the government's position that under this statute, if this Kindle device where you can read a book, which is campaign advocacy, within the 30-day period, if it comes from a satellite, it can be prohibited under the Constitution and perhaps under this statute.
It can't be prohibited, but a corporation could be barred from using its general treasury funds to publish the book and could be required to raise funds to publish the book using its PAC.
If it has one name, one use of the candidate's name, it would be covered, correct?
That's correct.
If it's a 500-page book and at the end it says, and so vote for X, the government could ban that.
Well, if it says vote for X, it would be express advocacy, and it would be covered by the pre-existing Federal Election Campaign Act provision.
No, I'm talking about under the Constitution, what we've been discussing, if it's a book.
If it's a book and it is produced, again, to leave to one side the question of
forget the
possible media exemption. If you had Citizens United or General Motors using general treasury funds to publish a book that said at the outset, for instance, Hillary Clinton's election would be a disaster for this.
Take my hypothetical. It doesn't say at the outset. It runs, here is whatever it is. This is a discussion of the American political system. And at the end, it says, vote for X.
Yes, our position would be that the corporation could be required to use PAC funds rather than general treasury
And if
funds.
they didn't, you could ban it.
If they didn't, we could prohibit the publication of the book using the corporate treasury fund.
I wonder.
What they mean by prohibit is that they will put you in jail if you do it. They will put you in jail for 5 years. That means prohibited. Now, what we're getting at here, when you're trying to make a 90-minute movie that discusses things that are important to the public during an election of the highest officer of the United States, many people will interpret that as critical. Many people will interpret it as supportive. There are things all over the lot, so it's subject to lots of different interpretations. The other thing is, I heard Mr. Stewart say that if there's 1 minute at the beginning, it doesn't matter what the other 89 minutes are, we can prohibit it. Well, where is the person making a movie who wants to address the American public about something that's important to the American public? There isn't any question about that. Where does he edit his movie? What cuts? What does he leave on the cutting room floor so that he won't have to go to jail? He won't dare take the chance.
Thank you, counsel. The case is submitted.